As promised, here we are. Question and answer. We've got a lot to discuss, haven't we, Harley?
We've actually got loads, and usually when we do these Q&As, sometimes we don't even get enough responses to actually do them. This time we've got too many.
Yeah, we've
Got
had to
too
actually
many.
cut it down.
Yeah.
And I think, is that a potential sign of the times that things aren't going as well?
Yeah, usually when things are going well for us, no one has any questions, and we don't have a lot to talk about. So um, I do agree that it's absolutely a sign of the times because when things are going badly, everybody questions literally everything,
Yeah,
and that makes for great content.
great content. And we will try and
Great
deliver on
content.
that great content. So
We
let's get
will.
started with one of the big topics. So Chris B has asked us, is the Trivela excitement gone?
Um, it shouldn't be because Trivela have absolutely no impact on what's going on the pitch right now. I think they've done everything right. I think that maybe just because we haven't had any news on them really for like a month or so, maybe a little bit longer, that things are going a little bit quiet on that front. But they're doing nothing wrong, so it
I
shouldn't be.
I've seen a lot of people questioning Trivela and that they are trying to make fast money from the club and that they are trying to um, grow their share prices so that they can sell it, make a profit, or sell the land. Or there's a lot that's been said about them. Now, my kind of financial knowledge isn't great. It's mainly from just the Price of Football podcast that I will that I know
Mhm.
stuff. When they came in, Trivela said that they wanted like a multi-club system. Now, the easiest way for them to do that and to be an appealing owner is by showing that they can develop and grow a club. I I'm not naive enough to think that they're in it just because it's passion. They obviously want a return on their investment. That is natural.
Yeah.
But the easiest way for them to do that is to get Walsall up the leagues
Mhm.
because Walsall in the Championship. I'm not for 1 second saying we're anywhere near that, but a Walsall side that are in the, or club that are in the Championship is completely different to one that was sort of bottom third of League Two, even top end of League One. Huge difference.
Yeah.
The things that I've seen recently are regarding ticket prices, are regarding um, things like the training shirts and things like that. Yes, I think the training top price, they've got it wrong. I do
Yeah.
genuinely. I think that was a really poor pricing, and I'd be surprised if anyone really does buy it. Um, Season tickets. I don't know how many years it was, but we'll sort of even in tough times and in COVID years, not increase the price of season tickets. And historically, it's been very small increases over the last few years. This has been coming. The fact that I think probably in a post-COVID environment, they needed to increase season tickets anyway. Then you factor in the cost of living, and also just the fact that you look at some of the money that's been put into League Two at the moment. Walsall do need to compete with that. Now, yes, attendances have been growing, and that's great. But the easiest way for them to almost have a budget for next season is to see how is based on season ticket
Yeah.
sales. So it doesn't surprise me that they've increased. My advice would be that there are ways of paying in installments, and also the early bird pricing is going to be cheaper. So if you are considering, it's going to be more affordable now. Um, but I think I don't. Yes, it's a shame because no one wants to see the price of the ticket go up. But I think it was inevitable. And I don't think you can really blame Trivela for that. I think it just happens to have been at the time that they were in.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it comes down to the fact that we are in a cost of living crisis, and we have been for a little bit, and COVID really affected us. And we'll get on to that a little bit later, I believe. But look, I think what it comes down to is, do you believe that that price is worth it for you personally? Do you think that you're going to go to enough games that you think that is a fair amount to spend? Because it still works out about £13 a game, which is £7 cheaper than a match day ticket. So you are saving money, but you've got to figure out whether that's financially viable for yourself.
I think the
If the
thing that
club is,
hasn't, sorry to just jump in, that hasn't helped it is I haven't seen many clubs release their season ticket prices yet.
no,
We've gone very early, and I think I do feel that we're going to see this across the board.
yeah, yeah, and like I was saying, it's a business at the end of the day, and they're going to be hit as well as you. It's not just a cost of living crisis for the everyday man. It's a cost of living crisis for a lot of people, and businesses are included in that. And this is a competitive industry that you have to make more money to compete. It's the reality of the game. And you can't expect the owners to just keep pumping in money after money after money, because they won't do it. They need passive income,
Yeah,
which essentially that is where you get money just coming in all the time for not much work. And that is stuff like selling like kits and stuff like that and training gear. But when it's not enough, you do need to raise the prices a little bit. And look, I don't like it. I don't like paying more for stuff, because obviously being a student, I can't afford a season ticket. I'll be completely honest with that. And so it does hit home for me a little bit that I understand why people are saying like they don't like it, but at the same time, if you want Walsall to do well, if you want this club to stay in business, if you want them to progress up the leagues, you're going to have to pay a little bit more.
I
They're
think
not asking for a ridiculous amount, but you're going to have to, and it's make your decisions, with your wallet. Say how you feel with your
when
wallet. I
you
don't whatever
yeah
the saying is.
when you look at almost the fact that the I think there's ways around it.
Yeah,
Almost the cost of it is the cost of a new shirt, or it's the cost like the increase that you go. I think people are going to potentially be a bit more frugal in that sense that
yeah,
it's right. I don't mind paying the extra, but I'm not going to get a home and away shirt. I'm just going to get one, or maybe I'll buy one every other year. And I think that's where the club will potentially notice it. But what I do want to touch on is this £742,000 loss that was recorded and presented earlier in the month about, when was it? On the 9th of February. Now, I've seen a lot about Trivela and that this is on them. But I'd like to point out that these were four, and it does say in it that firstly, they did reduce some of the club debt, only by a few thousand, but that has got to be okay. Pomlet did touch on the fact that COVID will, and he says in this, that in his statement last year, warned that the effects of COVID will be felt for many years to come. A lot of clubs have announced losses of this figure and higher. However, this has got nothing to do with Trivela, because the accounts were for the year ending 31st of May 2022. Trivela bought the club, or were announced as owners, a week later, which, even if there was a tiny overlap, and I know that the deal was going on for a while, they won't have had the ability to make those decisions or to make any big decisions until they have control of the club, because at any point that could have fallen apart, even at the last minute. And really, a lot of it is, you're not going to hand over all of the important information about the club and all of the sort of key information to an owner until they have bought it. Yes, there will be a lot that will be given over, but especially the decision making. Yes, I know that they had a hand in Flynn, but ultimately, if they wanted someone and Pomlet didn't, if they're not the owner, that's not on them to be able to pull rank. So I do feel that putting it on Trivela is unfair, and especially when a lot of accounts are being published at the moment, and a lot of clubs are making big losses. So yes, I do feel that cost increase after that, it's not a surprise.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that there are a lot of people who seem to think they're financial experts. Um, the reality of the situation is this: COVID ruined pretty much every market. It threw the world into disarray. Everybody has been affected. Every industry pretty much had to stop production of whatever they were doing. That includes football. Yeah, we didn't have an income for a long time. Walsall are one of the very few clubs that I know of that actually have made a profit over recent years.
Yeah.
In football, and it's well known, you you don't make a profit really owning a football club. Very few football clubs and owners make a profit because it's just so difficult to do. Because you never get to a point where you can be comfortable, because there's always, you have to keep spending to stay where you are. That's the reality of football. It's a competing market. And I see a lot of people kind of, it's like people talking about Bonser and how he kept us in the green. Yes, he did. He also got us relegated to League Two, and we were middling in League One for a long time. You know, there's you. He did a lot of things. He may have done some things right. He did a lot of things wrong though. And operating in a profit, whilst good, it doesn't speak to progression of a football club. It That's not how it works.
I am.
So you know,
I also think, looking at the time frame, obviously yes, COVID, and there was that played a big part, but we didn't really have any major player sales. We didn't really have any big games in that spell that you go. I look at this season, and we get into the fourth round of the FA Cup. Prize money alone is a couple of 100,000, let alone any sort of extra TV that you get for highlights or it being shown abroad, let alone the big payday from hosting Leicester. That's where, and we're going to get onto Flynn very shortly, that's where it makes a big difference. If we'd have had that cup run last year, accounts would have been, it would have been a lot narrower, the loss.
yeah. And another thing I kind of want to add to this is that we operated in a way where we controlled our losses, which is important, because if you look at a lot of other clubs, they very nearly went bankrupt during COVID. And if you listen to Lee Pomlet when he spoke about the financial side of it, we really struggled, but we did absolutely everything to make sure that we came out the other side of COVID in a strong position. You know, you talk about there's grants, the grants aren't a lot of money. It's a few thousand, maybe a little bit more. Government grants don't affect the club that much. You take out a loan, you have to repay a loan. What Lee Pomlet said, and this is something that kind of sticks in my mind when we're talking about this, the effects of COVID financially don't appear straight away. It will be years down the line
Yeah.
when the financial statements come out, when you have to start repaying those loans, when you have to start repaying everything, all that money you've taken from other people to keep you in the green, then you're going to have to repay at some point. By controlling our losses during COVID, not taking out too many loans, not doing anything stupid, yes, we had some bad times on the pitch, but we've come out of it in a decent position. And I think if you looked at a lot of other clubs' financial statements, they'd be in a much worse position than us.
I also think the churn of the squad and the fact that we had to pay off, or like that. I know the churn of the squad won't have really crossed over because it was that summer that a lot of it was sort of done. We wouldn't have churned the squad so much if we didn't have the money to be able to do it. We also, in the time frame that these accounts are from, we're looking at the fact that we sacked another manager again. We also broke off the Fullerton contract, which I know it said was mutual, but I'm expecting there was some sort of payoff.
Yeah.
He would have been on a decent amount of money, probably the same as the manager was because of his role. There were extra costs in that.
Yeah.
But moving on to the board, question from Sadler's Girl: will the board ever learn? DJ not being replaced and Bennett not being replaced. Now, on our previous video, we spoke about almost bringing in Matt and bringing in Stevens. But I think personally, the bigger failing of January was not filling that right wing back position because of, and it's something we spoke about last time, because of then having to put Knowles at right wing back, where actually I think losing both DJ and Bennett has meant that we've lost both of our strikers to have.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's the thing. It's not just one striker we've had to replace, it's actually two because of the movement of Knowles.
Yeah. I believe that was a conscious decision to rectify the striker issue. Liam Bennett was unbelievable for us. And I don't think that we would have got anyone who was to that quality in to replace him in January, because I think he was League One ready when we signed him. And Cambridge fans can attest to that because they couldn't believe that he'd gone to League Two either. So I think it would have been very, very difficult for us to bring someone in. What I will say, though, is that we have Tom Knowles who can play there. We have Joe Riley coming back to fitness who can play there. And we signed Robbie Wilmot who can play there. Those players can also play in other positions. Liam Bennett couldn't. So I think there was a conscious decision to favour players that can play in multiple positions rather than going for someone who is specifically a right back. Because then we could use that money to sort out the striking position, because I'll be honest, I don't know how other people feel about this, but I absolutely think that the most important player on the pitch is the striker. That's who wins you games. You need to spend the money on the striker. The right wing back, you can make do with that. It's not the most important position on the pitch. I know that, in the times of Trent, Reece James, Jack Cancelo, how the position has changed, it's still nowhere near as important as having people who can score goals.
Yeah. And I do think, and I still believe that if we were offered the two that came in you would accept that. There's no way that you'd go, no, we don't. We'd rather have. Well, I mean, not that you'd never say, oh, I'd rather have Johnson over the two of them, but as replacements go, I do think that the club and Flynn did well.
Yeah, you
Now
can't do
we are recording
everything.
this before the Barrow game, so obviously we're not sure how the next sort of game or two would have gone. But with that in mind, as we've kind of touched on recruitment and what Flynn can bring in, Dom Howis, is Flynn overrated? And Lee Reynolds, how long has Flynn got? Now, firstly, I don't think really these questions should even be being raised because
No.
I do feel that Flynn's come in, he's really churned the squad, and he's got a system. Yes, we're not performing as well as we'd like, but ultimately he's got a proven track record, and I think he needs time. This is something that we've known about for a long time. Walsall have, unfortunately, over the last few years, got into a rhythm of hiring managers, letting them go after sort of a year, 18 months, squad churn. There's been a real lack of stability. And I personally feel Flynn is a manager that can offer that stability to us. And there are signs of improvement. Yes, the league table's not looking great at the moment. We had a decent cup run. We haven't had that for a long time. We are points wise. I'm going to make a big claim here without backing it up. We finished last season on 53 points. Sorry, no, that wasn't last season. That was 2020-21 season. Last season, 54 points. This season,
we're not far off that. We're on 45 now, aren't we?
We're on 43 with 15 games left to go. As it stands, if we hit sort of if we only get 10 more points, okay, fine. Flynn hasn't really changed a lot, but I think 10 from the next 15 games would be a disastrous end to the season. I think really when we talk about Flynn and whether he's the right man for the job and signs of progress, we do need to look at a full season in charge for him, because last season this is his squad now, and next season will be even more his squad. And I feel that we've got to a position now where we have to back a manager and we have to give them time. So for me, Flynn has got, I'd say, at least until the end of next season. If we are 18th at the end of next season, yeah, by all means, I do feel that it's time for him to move on, because it's clearly not worked over a 2-year spell. But while there are incremental improvements, he has to remain in the job.
Yeah. So has the board, so when will the board learn, or will the board ever learn? So like you said, we've gone through a kind of period where we just keep sacking the manager. So people moan we keep sacking managers or keep hiring the wrong manager, someone who doesn't have the pedigree. So we hire someone with pedigree and we give them a chance, and people moan at that as well. That's just the nature of football. What do you want the board to do realistically? I'd love for these people to find me a better manager.
Yeah,
because
that's
this
available
squad
and would want to come to our club.
exactly this squad is his squad. Yeah, success isn't instantaneous. Success is built over a number of years. You look at any good dynasty, and it doesn't happen straight away. You know, you have to bring in the right characters. You have to get the right manager with the right staff, with the right players. You have to have a bit of luck, and you have to put your faith in someone and give them time. And that's not something that's very popular in modern football, I will admit. But I believe it's the right way to go, particularly in this situation, is to we all said we wanted a bit of a project. Someone who can build a team that he wants over a number of seasons and put together a real title charge. Whoever takes over, yes, they may get some wins towards the end of the season. Yes, they might push towards playoffs, but then they're going to overhaul the squad because they're going to change the formation. They're going to change. They won't like all the characters in it. Yeah, we've got a manager that is likable, who tactically is effective, who can take us up the league. Yeah, we just need to give him time. And I agree with you that he's got until the end of next season. Personally, whatever happens this season, it doesn't matter. But next season will be the real test for him, because we need to be challenging for maybe not the title, but at least automatics or those high playoff places.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the board have learned. I think obviously we look back and we go, Clark leaving wasn't necessarily our doing, but it was obvious that he felt that that's what he needed to do. So yeah, I do feel that the churn of managers that ultimately will result in churn of a squad does need to end. That moves us nicely on to Jay Rayner, who has asked about players that we think will be leaving at the end of the season. Now, when I talk about churn of the squad, we do have a lot of loanees. However, I think we are plugging the gaps at the moment. And I think that's where you need to give a manager time, because he needs to look at his squad and go, these are the gaps. He needs a couple of windows to do that, because obviously players haven't worked out for whatever reason, or he's not felt he's got the ones in that he wanted. So I think the easiest way for us to do this is to go through the list of players that are out of contract. So here we go. I don't think we're going to get any of the loanees to stay, to be honest.
No.
I don't think maybe Lowe might come back next season, but I'm not sure. Potentially James Taylor again, because he's still quite young, but I'm not sure. I don't think Stevens will, because Forest Green are going to be back in League Two. Songo and Wilmot, I don't think they are the type of players we want, but they could be useful squad players. Anyway, those that are out of contract. Firstly, Isaac Hutchinson, who has a option of another year. I believe it's a year. I think Hutchinson will stay.
I agree.
For me, there's no question about it. I think he's definitely worth keeping. He's also, I mean, I do forget that he is only 22.
Yeah,
he's still young, but he's played a lot of games. Yeah, I think I would definitely keep him, and I think he will stay. I don't think he's the sort of player that we need to be trying to replace. Also, just looking at his sort of history as a player, this is the most he's ever played in a season. And I think that's got to be sort of taken into consideration.
Yeah, I think that the season after next, he will be in League One. I don't think he's ready for League One yet. So I think that he's going to have to stay in League Two. He may as well stay with us where he's comfortable. And if we go up to League One, he can stay longer, if he wants to. Or if we don't go up, he can leave at the end of his contract and go to a League One side. I think the best thing for him personally is for him to stay with us for another season where he belongs in League Two, and then next season he'll be in League One with or without us.
Yeah. Um, right, Andy Williams. I don't think he will, and I don't think he should either. I think he's experienced, but I yeah, I don't think he's worked out the way that we sort of hoped he would.
I think I'm a little bit different on this one.
Ooh.
I think that depending on his wage and whether he wants to or not, because it's obviously we don't know how he feels within himself about his body. Um, not in a that sounded weird, but in terms of like how long he can keep playing, um, I think that I think he's effective as a player. He's not as a starter, definitely not as a starter, but I think that when he has played for us, I think he has come up with big goals in big moments. And I like what he brings. He brings a lot of experience. He's a kind of target man. He can bring the ball down. He has had to work with a lot of dross this
Yeah,
season when he's played. That's harsh on the other players, but he hasn't played. Yeah, he's come in when we've been struggling, and he's just provided us with something else. And I think he's done a good job. So I think if he wants to keep playing for another season, I'd be happy to keep him on for a bit longer.
interesting. I mean, obviously we're going to do this again. We probably won't do this sort of going through it player by player until
Yeah.
now the end of the season. But
Yeah.
that's interesting. Interesting.
Mm.
Um, I'm just working down the list on transfer market. Joss Labadie, I feel he will get a year because I think the Newport connection. I whether I keep him or not, I don't know, but I think he will get another year. Fitness
I
dependent.
so I'm going to disagree again. I
Oh,
don't think we can because I think that he's going to be on a fairly decent whack,
that's true.
and I don't think we. I don't. He's an aging player. He's what 31, 32, something like that now. I think. And
He's 32. Yeah,
yeah, how long his legs have got in him, especially after an ACL. He's been out all season. I think it would be bad business to keep him on. As much as I think he's a good player, I don't think that really he offers anything that anyone else doesn't offer.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I then also, how much I do think he'll stay. He obviously, did he reject a contract at Newport or was he released? I
I
can't
have no
remember
idea.
now. But he obviously left Newport under Flynn. So
Yeah,
anyway, I think he will stay a year, but we
yeah.
should really.
I've gone the other way.
Connor Wilkinson. Now this is one that is.
See, I think we'll agree on this one, but I don't know.
I mean, I would absolutely fitness dependent.
I 100% would want to keep him because I think he's an excellent player.
I
I
also
think
think he
even,
gets the club and the fans.
yeah, I think even with his injury issues, he's young enough where he would find another club and he'll score goals for another club. I'd
Yeah,
rather that club just be us.
yeah,
And I think he gets it as well. And
yeah,
he, he he understands the club, he understands the fans, like you said, and I think he's a good character.
yeah. Agree. Right, I'm going to go for two quick fire ones here.
Oh,
Uh, Manny Month.
keep. I would love to
Same.
keep Mane.
Same. I think he's part of the defence that has been quite solid,
Mm.
um, and that really is one of the league's best defences when you look at the goals conceded. That being said, Hayden White.
Um, Release very
Yes, I
much so.
agree.
I think that whilst I've criticised him a lot in the past, I have seen some good stuff from him as well. But I think he's always got an error in him.
I think we can get
And
a as good a replacement, and I think it's worth trying that. I actually feel that if he went, I would do my best to get Low back.
mm, see, I think he's always got an error in him, and he just something not quite right with him. I just don't think he quite fits the team. I think
I
he'd
agree.
go on and be better in a kind of a smaller, not smaller, but kind of a team lower down in League Two, potentially someone who likes a more conventional right back.
Yeah,
Maybe that's because I just don't think he quite fits what we want.
yeah. One that I totally thought we had on loan, but I couldn't have told you where he was from. Taylor Allen. I'd keep. I think him and Gordon fighting for that left wing back is a good. Yeah, I think they spur each other on well. He's young. He can also fill in a couple of other places if needed. I think he's worth keeping.
100%. I really like Taylor Allen. I've said this all along. I think he's excellent.
Yeah,
For some reason, he got absolutely rinsed for like ages when Liam Gordon came back into the team, which I did not understand because I thought Taylor Allen was excellent at the start of the season. And I think he's been pretty solid to excellent every time he's played for us.
I
I
also
really like
think
him. He's
I
very
also think
versatile.
he probably was signed to be a young, obviously backup that can be developed. And given Gordon's injury, got more first team experience at the start of the season
Yeah,
than he probably was expecting.
definitely. I think that he was one that no one really knew what to expect from him. I think expectations were quite low. And I think he's exceeded my expectations 100%. I think he's a really solid player.
Right, the final three. I've kept all three of the centre mids, barring Labadie. Uh, so we've got Maddox, Earing, and Mr. Walsall himself, Liam Kinsella. For me, keep all three.
Keep all three. I think Earing is the only one that I think there's a conversation to be had about. But personally, I think that he is a good enough player that I'd like to keep him, and despite the injuries, to see if there is a real player there.
I mean,
Because I know that because we know he's good, but we
do we
just
know
need
what
to.
do we know what injury he's got?
Um, can't remember. I think it's something to do with his knee.
And I do feel that he ultimately he's not going to feature probably until like I say well into next season. I mean like a good month or two into next season.
Yeah,
If it's an ACL, because it's a similar timeline to like Wilkinson and obviously Labadie.
yeah.
So I'd personally, I think he's worth keeping, even if it's just the 1 year to try and get him
Mm.
fit and see where he's at.
I also don't
Kinsella,
think he'd be on a massive wage,
no, no.
so I think
Kinsella, I'd
that
keep.
financially we could keep him
Yeah, Kinsella, I'd keep. I
100%.
I know people talk about his technical ability. Um, he does what he does, and he does it well.
Yeah,
Um, and for me, Maddox, I think he's growing. I think he needs a home. I think he's moved around a lot. And I think I'm going to go back and say that we're not going to keep Labadie because of keeping these three centre mids.
yeah.
But I do feel that he's definitely worth keeping.
I think the only two that I would say that might not stay and it not be our choice is Month and Maddox. So I think that Month
Yeah.
he might have aspirations of League One. I don't know if he's ready for League One. Personally, that's
Yeah.
why I think he should stay because I think that he's a League Two defender, and in the right team he could be a League One defender. And Maddox, I think it's just whether he feels he's in the right place or not.
Yeah, which
I think
has
that's
shown
completely his
over his
decision.
which has shown over his career because he has moved
Yeah.
around a fair bit. Right, moving on. This has been a topic of conversation for quite a while, and it's something that we both really didn't want to have to bring up on this, but unfortunately, I do feel that the last couple of weeks has shown that the topic has grown. The coverage around Walsall at the moment has been, I would say, subpar. I think
Yeah.
we aren't getting many, and I'll talk about it going from the bigger stuff to then like just the basics. We don't seem to get the big exclusive interviews. A lot of the content that we're getting from the Express and Star seems to be club media content that you could just get on YouTube or by listening to the WM. Um, it doesn't feel like there is a journalist in place that is pushing to get stories, to get exclusive content. And this might be completely wrong. Obviously, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I I feel that it's during the spell where we did have a good run. Obviously, at the moment things aren't as great, but it felt like we needed that connection that we've had with previous reporters, and we're not getting that. And then on a more basic level, the amount of errors, I mean, to hand, getting the wrong Hutchinson, talking about the
Yeah.
wrong Liam. There was again over the weekend saying that in the headline that after the defeat to Hartlepool, then using the hashtag Salop. They're just they're just basic errors, and
Yeah.
I know we all make them, and but it gets to a point where you go, when is it going to be rectified?
Yeah. Um, just a point to that. I feel like before anybody says anything, I feel like me and Rob are in a reasonably good place to comment on this because Rob himself, you've done what is it, a master's degree in sports
Yeah,
journalism?
yeah, and
Um,
work within
I'm
sports media.
exactly, and I'm currently doing an undergraduate degree in sports journalism. So both of us understand the industry quite well and what it requires to be a sports journalist. So we are in a good position to talk about this. And
Yeah,
I do agree with you. I think that fundamentally there are issues there. We were talking about this off camera about there seems to be a lack of a sub editor
yeah,
for a lot of the work. I think that's a great point, and I understand. So the journalist we have covering Walsall is Paul Jenkins. I think that's his name. Is Paul Jenkins right?
yeah,
Yeah, and I understand that he's a background in non-league football. That's fine, and that he's a little bit of an older journalist, so he didn't grow up in the kind of the age of multimedia, particularly as a kind of a sports journalist. That is something that is changing within the industry. I do get that, so I do somewhat have sympathy for him, but on the other hand, as a journalist, fundamental mistakes, yeah, that's a killer.
yeah.
It really is. I I do a lot of writing for my course, and if I made those kind of mistakes, yeah, I would not pass because the things that you get drilled into you are get names, places, ages correct. That's the basic. You need to get those details correct.
I mean, I like every piece of work that I do is sub edited.
Yeah,
It has to be sub edited. That is, well, I say company policy. It's just what we do. We sub edit each other's work. It's not that there's a specific sub editor in place. We just edit each other's work to make sure that there aren't mistakes. And it's rule 101. If if a headline says Walsall suffered defeat to Hartlepool, but then in the introductory sentence it says Hartlepool pulled 2 goals back to draw 3-3, that it's just basics. And I do feel that it is difficult because I think he's a senior reporter, and obviously knowing the industry, you don't rise up without having a level of sort of credibility and a content production. What I do feel is that where things haven't helped is that very low key came onto the scene.
Yeah.
There's not been there's not been any podcasts. There's not been the video interviews where almost, I think now a modern day sports journalist, you have to get to know them. I think it's quite an important part. And I look at what Express and Star do for other clubs, and it does feel, and I think the feeling amongst fans is, it just feels like we kind of are bottom of the pile, which is not a nice situation to be in, because like I said earlier in the season, when we were on the winning run, all that excitement and that excited energy, you just wanted to share it online. And I know Joe Edwards was always a one for putting out tweets that got interaction and putting out maybe alternate views. And not everyone's going to agree, or not everyone agreed with what he said, but it was that rapport that everyone had that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I just feel that it's getting to a point where a lot of fans are picking up on it, and it's a difficult topic to avoid not talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a personal attack on Paul in any way,
Not at all.
because I think that it's a failing of the Express and Star to not have systems in place to help him. Because if you are going to bring in a senior reporter who doesn't have experience with multimedia, who doesn't have experience running Twitter accounts and such, which he's admitted he's learning the ropes, who's helping him?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in my first year at university, and I can do a lot of the things that he can't do.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to teach him to do it. He needs someone to come and help him. If you are going to put your faith in someone who, admittedly, I've seen a few pieces he's done, and he can write.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not
and
bad.
I think that's where the frustration lies, that there has been some really good content, but unfortunately, the reason that everyone likes Joe Edwards is because of the amount of high quality content that was produced. And I think the good stuff's getting lost in the errors.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our view on it. Covering Walsall's never going to be the easiest job, because it's a lower league team. From a sports journalist point of view, if you're covering a team that's in the Premier League or potentially in Europe, amazing the trips you get, the teams that you get to see play, and some of the work has been really good. I just feel that it's starting to get to a point where the fans are picking up on it, and it's not just one or two, but we've seen a lot of it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
And finally, we're going to end on something a little bit positive, because I feel that's a bit of a dig where really it was more of this is what's been brought to our attention from a lot of supporters.
Yeah.
We're diversifying, aren't we, Harley?
Yes, we are. I mean, this is more Rob's baby than it is mine, so I'm going to kind of let him talk you through the details. But we are working on some stuff that I think you all will enjoy. Rob, you want to take it away?
Yeah. So we've been debating this for a while, and it's something that we've wanted to get off the ground, to make content a little bit more regularly. but also we've tried to listen to what what people who watch this and have supported us have said, and we're hoping to, within the next couple of months, launch this as a podcast that will be available on certain platforms. Those platforms are TBC, and there's a lot of stuff that is to be confirmed, but we are looking into, and we found kind of the way that we'd like to do it. So yeah, we are hoping to launch this soon, so that you don't have to sit and watch or watch it on your phone. You'll be able to listen to it on the likes of SoundCloud or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to add is that be realistic with this. But if there is anything that you think we could be doing better or differently that you'd like to see, drop it in the comments and we'll look into potentially changing the way that we work if that's something that you think will benefit this.
We will. We're also looking at launching a Twitter page that will be specific to these videos, the podcasts. So yeah, we're hoping to have that with you within a couple of months, and hopefully it will be slightly shorter videos, podcasts, but on a slightly more regular basis.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have more for you in the next video. So there we go. That has been a long old Q&A. But I feel that there's been a lot of topics there that did need discussing about a lot of both on and off the pitch. So yeah, hopefully we'll be talking from an unbeaten run in March. That's a lot more wins for you.
We can only hope, but we'll see you. We'll see you at the end of March, the beginning of April. We might be happier, we might be less happy. We don't know yet, but we will definitely see you then.
We will. Harley, always a pleasure. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.